wide open. And it wasn't just me. Like some pro gamers we had testing also found the deck, and we both and it was really funny in the first round. Jem refused to use my version of the deck because he didn't want to these pros had just gotten the game like 2 or 3 days ago. He didn't want to be too unfair in their tournament match, and they played it against him. And he's like, "No, this is not. I chose not to run this." But it was Tail of the Old Turtle used to be this really cheap card before we had Gabriel and Colossus in. And so the idea was you could play Tail of the Old Turtle to draw up to 5 cards after emptying your hand with really cheap events and Soul Pact to gain more Faeria. And then you would draw and draw and draw until you found your Colossi, and they were all free. So we nerfed the cost of the Colossi. We nerfed the Tail of the Old Turtle by a ton. But I frankly think that if you could build an Event Storm deck using Tail of the Old Turtle as a draw engine, you want cheap events, right? Falcon Dive, Campfire, and Famine are potentially really good ways to control the board. And if you're drawing lots of cards, and you don't want creatures on the board for multiple famines and stuff like that, well, maybe Egg of Wonders is good in that deck.
Yep.
So what's the downside of Famine?
It also hurts your own creatures.
Yeah, obviously. Okay, that was easy.
It's not that efficient. You want to be dealing damage really efficiently to get value trades, and something that's that situational, you basically the upside on Famine is a lot lower than the upside on even a Falcon Dive, and it's a lot less reliable. Like you can just play a Falcon Dive to deal the extra 1 point of damage to something that you need to kill. Yep. You can't really do that with Famine. You're going to hurt your own guys.
Yep. Let's move on to Punishment. It's a
great anti-Waryak card.
Yeah, Waryak is the reason this.
But then again, Waryak is OP, so. Punishment, basically, Waryak would be the reason to run 3 punishments in your deck.
Yeah.
Fuck that card.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I really like Punishment. It's always been a meta tool. We put it in specifically to be an answer to the problem of neutral cards, that we could actually put a neutral card at 5 life and not have to worry about it as much. So even if it got dominant, you could just get completely blown out by something like a Punishment. And getting your Waryak punished is so punishing that you have real problems, because often the Waryak deck, especially the red versions, which the red version especially is so powerful, and it's really good because of its ground shakers against your opponent's harvesters. If you try to get too greedy, they can just randomly kill everything on your board, and you go to the side, you lose so much value. It's really, really painful. But the thing is, those decks tend to invest very heavily into their Faeria, and their opponents, because they're making mostly special lands, can really get their value out as long as they can just get a bit of a Faeria edge, and Punishment provides that.
Yeah, Punishment is. I feel it's very powerful, even if it's not.
It's very powerful, but the downside is it's also very situational, because if you are facing against a deck that doesn't use any human creatures, well, the problem then is that it's a overcosted Cypher's Wrath that doesn't even deal damage to the orb.
Yeah. It's overcosted, but people will pay a lot just to kill something this turn.
Yeah,
the thing is, there's not that many important creatures in the game that have 2 life.
Exactly.
Partly because of this card. It's sort of that if Bloodsinger had 2 life, which we've talked about in order to make the card less frequent, I think that's the incorrect way to make the card less frequent, because it becomes even more all or nothing. You have it, you win. You don't, they win. That sort of thing. If you're expecting to rely on this strategy. But usually we put a lot of these cards we want to build decks around at 3 life to dodge punishments, which makes it feel harder to run them. And the idea would be that people would probably combine it with Falcon Dive in the same decks, but that's a lot of deck slots.
Yeah.
So I think Punishment's in a really good place right now, and I think that you just win so many games by having 1 or 2 of them in. And again, as long as your deck is not risking running out of cards in hand, that you always have at least a few options, that your curve is roughly, your average Faeria cost is roughly equivalent to what you're going to be getting. I think Punishment, just having the tool available to you, will put you in situations where you are more than happy to overpay for the last 2 damage to something important, like it's some 8/2 creature right next to your orb, because you couldn't deal quite enough damage with your normal creatures because it's so big. You hit a 5/5 into their Verduran Force, you just, you'll pay 3 Faeria to get rid of a 7/2, and every now and then just wins you the game against Waryaks and stuff.
I think Punishment is also the reason why, I mean, if we think about like the golden number for health for a minion, it's 5 really, if it's a colored minion, because most of the removals deal 2, 3, or 4 damage, or they deal like they just kill the minion instantly. But for a neutral minion, you need to have 6 health really, because of punishment. If you want to get favorable trades with the card and cost.
Yeah, and you'll notice, or you have to cost less than 3 Faeria, and you'll notice that those cards just don't exist.
Yeah,
that's very intentional.
So I think it's important to think about when you build your decks. That
punishment.
If you have a neutral minion, a 6 health neutral minion is so much better than a 5 health.
Yeah, punishment will be one of those cards that you'll see a lot in tournament plays.
Yeah,
you'll probably see it a bit less in normal ranked plays, depending on the meta, of course. I mean, if the meta evolves into having a lot of human creatures, then punishment will be run in every deck. But in tournament plays, punishment is a great card to just have in your deck, because people tend to run anything in tournament plays, really.
Yeah, and also it's worth noting that we intentionally designed the major defensive cards in neutral to not get punished by punishment. It's a defensive tool mostly. Like you'll notice that dealing 5 damage to a Queen's Guard that for 3/6 for 6 is real for 3 Faeria. That's over the curve. That's good, but you still need to do one more thing to get rid of her. You need the last Falcon Dive.
All right, let's move on to Magda, Queen of Meraval. I don't know if I pronounced it.
Oh no,
Yakda, Queen of Yaks.
We should probably read the card out because it's a legendary.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a creature with 0 attack and 2 health, and it has gift, gain control of an adjacent enemy creature as long as Magda is on the battlefield. So when you play her next to an opponent creature, you get control over it. As long as you keep Magda next to it.
Magda is such a risky card.
It's 7 Faeria, so I really feel like I think you might be working with old text because I'm pretty sure that my notes about it say gift, lose the game.
Well, no. Because right now there is a bug
That's a glitch.
With unexpected evolution and changing Magda into anything that isn't Magda doesn't remove the control. So right now in blue, Magda is really, really powerful.
Complete glitch.
Actually.
The thing
is that not intentional?
No, not at all. It's supposed to be
read the card text.
It's only as long as she's on the battlefield. Now, the reason I say she's like gift lose the game is because anything kills her. Like she's got 2 life. You can just use 2 Falcon Dives. You can use drain soul drain. You can use devour Cypher's Wrath. I'm having trouble saying card names because the card names changed.
And later on you can also use Frogify.
You can use Frogify, you can use, even Last Nightmare, which is so overkill, it still costs less than her. So, haste creatures.
There are 3 colors with a direct removal that could remove her. Only green does have it, but green can also always go for Falcon Dive for punishments.
And they can also go for the, neutral haste creature, the Freedom Fighter, which is much better than it looks. A 3/4 is a nice body because it can usually fight a utility creature and survive. And also it gives green a new tool because often green has the problem of nothing it has haste, and often it's making a lot of forced, so it stays back, and it's very hard for him to break past a land barrier quite often. So by having a haste creature, you can just get a little bit of extra distance. And so there's anything kills her. So she's just terrible, I think. And it's pretty intentional because we wanted some legendaries to look really cool, but not actually be competitive.
I mean, it's a really fun card. Even if it's not super strong, it's still a fun card to use.
Massive flavor win, too. I really like the core design of it, and I feel that the fact it's adjacent creates some really interesting things. I think it's a lot of fun to make work. You can try to protect it. You can do all sorts of cool things. But it fundamentally is a very, very not great card against the vast majority of decks, and anybody can deal with it.
She does have amazing art, though.
Oh, yeah, her art's fantastic. I think she's a really cool, well-designed card. We went through like 18 different iterations on this concept of her alone. And I like this one a lot. It's just I'm very happy it's not at a high power level, because getting your creatures stolen feels so much worse than getting them killed. And getting them stolen by a legendary that you don't have is even worse.
Yeah,
it's like, it's not enough you have cards I don't. You have to take the ones I do.
All right.
Well, Hiflem says we saw cubes lose to it today. Yeah, that was because of the glitch.
All right, guys.
Wasn't he? Oh, never mind. All right, I don't know if I saw that again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I still have a lot of cards here prepared, so let's just move on. Might take a little while for the stream to update. I don't know how long the delay is, but the next card is Unbound Evolution, which is insanely good card. It requires 3 legs, it costs 1 fairy, and it reads, transform a creature into a random creature that costs 1 more. And in the beginning, you might think, oh wow, this is really awesome to use to upgrade your own creature. For example, the legendary creature we just talked about. But what's so good about this card is that it has so many uses. You can play it on an enemy minion that has a last word effect to get rid of it. If the green player buffs up a minion really much, you can remove the buffs. And if you play it on a 7-cost card, you have like a 17% chance of just killing it if it's not on a lake, because there are so many aquatic creatures with the 8 cost. And
oh, you know what is hilarious? Playing Unbound Evolution on an aquatic that's over an ocean, or a flying creature that's over an ocean, because they'll have to build lands to it in order for it to survive. But yeah, Unbound Evolution is I think one of the most versatile cards, but it's also one of those cards that can either win you the game or be the most useless piece of shit ever.
Yeah.
It can totally screw you over.
I gotta say, Unbound Evolution is one of my favorite designs that we put in. It came in very late in the design process. It was one of the last cards added. Blue had a lot of holes because it was the last color we really philosophically nailed down. Like we were having trouble finding a color space for blue that did what we wanted for it and felt different from the other colors. And we ended up settling on this idea of blue philosophically being all about transformation. That if you don't like the world, you should change it, and they change how the world works rather than actually destroying something. And so they'll gain control of things. They'll change the power and toughness. They won't, give you a penalty, but even the text of that, like Humbling Vision, is change its power to 1. So they're all about change. They're all about ever-flowing ocean. So what's interesting about we had to really redo a lot of their designs to make them fit this theme, and so we kept having holes, and Unbound Evolution was one of the last ones that went in. And what I love about this card from a design perspective is that there's like really good cards from a design perspective are like ones often that you rediscover as you're playing the game, that you find new uses for, new synergies for, and it makes the game feel constantly fresh and deep and interesting. And one of the nice things about the Unbound Evolution is it has like 6 layers of discovery. Usually we're happy to have 1 extra thing, but Unbound Evolution, you read it, and normally it's different from different players, but normally the process that I've seen people go through is like, 1, oh, okay, it's called evolution, so it's a positive thing, and it gives something stronger, so okay, I can upgrade one of my creatures into a bigger one. Okay, 1 Faeria more for one more Faeria worth of creature. That's kind of cute, not that good. And then people say, oh, on gift creatures, this creature costs 4, but it has a gift to give something else +3/+3, but I can use it and now get a random 5-cost creature on myself and still get the 3/3 benefit on something else. That's so cool.
Yeah,
and then they started
not to mention that you can also use it if your minion has lost a lot of health and it's about to die. You can use
and it can basically, you can fight something and heal it, and people effectively by having it turn into a new thing, and you're like, oh, that's cool. And then it gets used on one of your utility creatures or something, and you're like, oh my god, I need that Bloodsinger, but now it's a random Mace Man or something. That's so bad for me. Like or he turned a taunt into something, and that's bad. And then what happens is eventually usually it's you, but somebody plays a Colossus that costs 0 Faeria as an 8/8. And then somebody plays Unbound Evolution on it, and it tracks the cost while it's in play, so they get a random 1/1, or like a random 1-cost creature, which is one of our major safety valves against those colossi, because we really know they can take over the game.
Another thing, a fun thing to do with Unbound Evolution is to play an Unbound Evolution. Oh, I got a crap creature. Play Unbound Evolution again.